Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kortiwada. In this video, we will learn about Next.js client component. In my previous video, I have explained how to use our CSS in the application and how we can use that particular CSS for a particular component. But before going further, to make some set of links active based on the URL, we need to know about client components. So when we can say a particular component as a client component and what exactly the client component is about. So let me go into the another slide. Here, when we want to use some set of hooks which are provided by React in a particular component, or the hooks which are provided by Next.js in a particular component, then such components are not considered as a server-side components. They are treated as client-side components. That means client components. So whenever you create a particular file or a component, then by default it is a server-side component. If you try to use some set of hooks, Next.js immediately throws some error to use a directive called as use client at the top of the file so that that particular component becomes a client component. I'll show you exactly what is the difference between these two. Let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. Here we have created something called as header.js. Now what I'll do is I'll show you this header component in our server side rendering. So let me go here and let me go into the dashboard and let me use page view source and line wrap, and you can see this about and a dashboard and a products. Along with that you have something called as a links. So let me check that links, that is an anchor tag. So you can see that anchor tag which is having a header active with a color of green, and that is equivalent to your dashboard. Now you are able to see whole that content in our server side rendering. So what I'll do is I'll go here. I'll try to use something called as count and set count is equal to use state. Just I'm trying to create a hook inside this. So I'm just using a hook which is given by React and save this. Let me go here. Immediately Next.js throws an error. You are importing a component that needs use state. It only works in the client component, but none of its parents are marked with use client. So it is giving a detailed description which is easy to understand. So let me go here. It is asking us to put an directive called as use client at the top of the file. Let me save this and you can see there is no error. But by keeping that particular directive on the top of the file, what happens? If you go into view page source and line wrap, try to get anchor tag and you are able to get this is just because of cache memory. So what I'll do is I'll go here, I'll quit this and then run it again. Now go here and let me copy this, put it over here and hit 3000. Now it will be loading and let me go into the view page source, wrap this and you can check an anchor tag. Still the anchor tag is visible, but whatever the rendering happens, that will be happened on the client itself. Why and how? So let me go here and let me write a console.log of header and save this. Now once I go into this dashboard and inspect, and if you go into the console you can see that header in the browser, not in the console or a terminal of that Next.js. So let me go here. If I go into a page.js and let me write some console here, console.log of home and save this, you can see that home inside the terminal of Next.js, but this header is visible over here. So that is how the rendering will happen. If you use client directive, it will act like a client component. That means that whole rendering will happen on the browser's DOM instead of happening at the server side. So whatever you are not using use client, which are by default the server components, that components will render in the server and it will showcase on the browser DOM. So that is how the rendering process will happen. So that's why whenever you are using a use client, be careful. Whenever you have a very big component, it is always recommended to make use of server side component, and whatever the states, whatever the use effects, whatever the hooks you are trying to use for a special code, that code make it as a separate component and use it. so that at least out of 100 lines you can make 50 lines as server side component rendering, and remaining 50 lines which are dependent on your hooks, that can be made as a client side component, so that you can reduce the burden on the client and whole rendering will happen in the server side itself. But there will be no difference in this particular code. You can see that code in your view source also. So that's how your client side components will work in Next.js. And now we will see some other stuff by using this use client directive. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.